Welcome back. All right, news of the day for your Tuesday, April the 18th. And we're going to start off talking about the Canucks. Yesterday, Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet talking to the press about the Vancouver Canucks and where they're at and the state of things. And it was kind of what I was concerned with. Management basically saying, Allvin saying they were 6 wins out of the playoffs, which is true. They were 12 points out of the playoffs, but it made it sound like they're really seeing themselves as being in a good position to make the playoffs next year and things will turn around, and they're not planning on any kind of a buyout going on. That's what they don't want to do, buyouts. Of course, the rumor for years has been that Francesco Aquilini doesn't want to give big buyout payouts to anybody, which is understandable. I understand that, if somebody says, can you cut a $20 million check because we need to get rid of this guy, I can understand an owner saying, I'd rather not. But it is interesting to see this conversation it really sounds similar to Jim Benning. Honestly, it does. It sounds similar to Benning, we're close. We're not that far off. They're talking about we need to go get a third line center. Yep. Okay, I've heard that one before as well, and that's something that's been out there for a long time with Vancouver. Dating back to Gaudette. Gaudette was going to be that third line center. And that didn't quite work out, and of course, there's been other third line center attempts since then. Brandon Sutter, another one. He's going to be the third line center. I remember when he came in and he might end up playing top 6 minutes. It's just, it feels very similar. So they don't want to make any buyouts. They want to go out and get a third line center. They have no cap space. And I don't know how the math on that's going to work unless they're willing to give up future assets to get rid of a contract or two that they want to get off the team. So they have that flexibility. But it definitely sounds like they'll be spending to the cap again and seeing themselves as a team that'll be potentially in the playoffs next year. The right things being said was regarding the leadership of the team. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, as well as Quinn Hughes. Now, the interesting part of this is because JT Miller's name gets mentioned, for anybody who's like, well, the Canucks are going to trade Miller, it really doesn't sound like they're going to. It really doesn't sound like there's even the consideration for trading JT Miller right now. It looks like that's going to be part of the core for a long time to come. Also, while Brock Besser has apparently rescinded any trade requests he's made from the team, Patrick Allvin would not commit to him remaining on the team. So, again, could a move be made with Besser? Yes. Could that be to alleviate some of the salary cap stress on the team? Absolutely. Where does he end up? No idea. Of course, the team that'll get mentioned often is going to be Minnesota, but Minnesota has their own cap problems right now. It is going to be interesting to see what the Canucks do. Of course, once July 1st has come and gone and Tyler Myers has had his bonus paid out, the cap hit's really high for Myers, but the actual cash owed to Myers is not. So for a team that's looking to add somebody and they're not worried about the cap space, they could pick up Myers, have that high cap hit without actually paying the money. So sort of an Arizona type situation there, right? So we'll see what happens with Vancouver. But again, as soon as I heard, well, we're 6 wins out of the playoffs. Oh, not this again. Please, not this again. Because to me, it's this idea of, we're not that far off. And it's really frustrating because, they are. And the idea that, well, things got better after Tocchet took over. Yeah, after the schedule got easier, then the team was better. The team is better than the teams that are the bottom 5 in the league, but they're not a playoff team. And if you add a third line center and you don't make any other big changes, odds are they're probably not a playoff team next year either. So we'll see. So everybody's been messaging me. There's been all kinds of messages yesterday and into today about this Atlanta area. Basically, it's very similar to the Tempe development and what the Tempe Entertainment District is going to look like. So they're calling it The Gathering at South Forsyth. It looks like it's in the middle of nowhere from the reports I saw. 18,500 would be the capacity for a hockey arena. So this is the idea that, hey, we're going to bring the NHL back. Office and retail space would be there. There'd be a community center, 450 hotel rooms, a fire station, as well as residential units. I haven't heard that Sky Harbor Airport suing them on this idea yet, so it's got a good chance. But at any rate, Anson Carter apparently was asked about this. He is an owner of the Atlanta Gladiators, and said that the potential new arena reveal yesterday at the start of the playoffs showed disrespect for the hockey community, which I'm not sure how. I mean, I guess if you're at somebody's engagement party or somebody says I'm getting engaged and you jump and go I'm getting engaged too, I guess that could be seen as some disrespect. I no idea. It is. I don't understand how it's disrespect. It gets people talking. I understand there is interest in Atlanta, and I'm going to say this too because I keep seeing people saying, "Well, Atlanta lost their team because they didn't want it." Atlanta lost the Thrashers because they lost their building, because the owners were not very good at the owner part of things. So the Atlanta Thrashers moved to Winnipeg not because of fan apathy, and I think that's the frustrating part for Atlanta fans. It was not that there wasn't the interest. It was not that people weren't going to the games. I've mentioned that they were outdrawing other teams. They weren't top half of the league, but they were not the worst team in the league at drawing fans. And they were definitely a city that had shown interest in the NHL along the way with the Thrashers, far more than they had with the Atlanta Flames. The Atlanta Flames, absolutely. That was a move based on apathy in the market. It didn't work. The Atlanta Thrashers were a much better run. It's just without that postseason success, without even postseason appearances, and again, with ownership that just failed on a few levels, they lost their team. That being said, this announcement of a new building and all this talk about expansion and what else, I don't know. The interesting part too is that they're saying that this will be ready in potentially 3 years, and it sounds like the Tempe, basically the Tempe setup. It's very, very similar. At least I think so. So we'll see if it goes through and if it's contingent on anything. The NHL, of course, has already said they're not in expansion mode right now. The fact that they throw in the qualifier tells you at some point in time there could be expansion. I don't think it happens anytime soon. I would be very surprised if it happens anytime soon because the NHL just hit 32 teams. And I think they want to make sure that this Tempe project goes forward and works. So that's the concern right now, to take the Coyotes franchise, build them up, take a look at any other franchises in the league that might be ailing, make sure they're propped up, and then maybe you look at further expansion. Now, this segues really nicely into the Tempe discussion. The Tempe first is, and it may not be Tempe first that's put this forward. But there are people going door to door, and they don't really seem to understand exactly what this new arena in Tempe and the whole entertainment district, what this would entail. Because one of the recordings, and somebody's got them, at their door in a video, basically a Ring doorbell sort of video, saying he, meaning Alex Mariuello, is taking all of the residence tax, sales tax, and he gets it for 8 years. That could not be further from the truth. There's no, that basically this arena goes through there was a release today that the Coyotes also retweeted out, basically saying that an independent firm or an independent group looked at it, and it will be the first ever arena where they pay city taxes, as well as they don't cost the taxpayers a dollar. Basically, if all this goes through and if all this works the way that it's planned to work, it will cost the taxpayers nothing. It will bring jobs to the area, and it also cleans up a landfill, because I guess there's people attached to their landfill, and it's such a bizarre thing to see, but it definitely seems like there's one side there that's really got. I question the motives. I've said this in videos before. I question the motives of the people who are so vehemently opposed to this, because it doesn't seem like it's going to cause any negatives. If there were negatives, I'd find them, but I haven't seen any as of yet. And a lot of it seems to be aimed at, are you going to trust this billionaire to come in here? You know what he did to Glendale? The relationship between Glendale and the Coyotes was a disaster. It was one that should have ended sooner, and it is nothing like what they're bringing in for Tempe. That whole thing in Glendale, they didn't have their own arena. They didn't build their own arena. They didn't spend $2.5 billion to put anything in there. It's apples to oranges. It really is. So we'll find out next month what the plan is. And one of the rumors, and this ties into the Atlanta one nicely, one of the rumors that's out there is that maybe the NHL is aware of this project and is trying to find out what's going to happen with Arizona first, and whether or not that arena is allowed to go ahead, and then make a decision on what's going to happen from there. But yeah, the voting is in process, and apparently there's people going door to door. I also saw one person saying that they had someone come to their door who was maybe not working for Tempe first, but had a lot of those talking points, and yet didn't really know anything past the surface. So when they were challenged on these talking points they were using at the door, they didn't have an answer. And that's something I recommend too, is if you can challenge them. And I'm not saying like to a duel. Don't get out a glove and slap them in the face. I will not encourage duels on this channel, but yeah, you just ask them. Just say, all right, so what about? And if you know about the project, just answer them and just say, actually, what I've heard with the project is this. And you know, even if you had like a little pamphlet made up, that'd be great, because I'm sure some of these people have pamphlets, so you can just hand one right back to them. Here's my pamphlet for you. Are you going to read this? No? Well, I'm not going to read this one then. So yeah. Anyways, that storyline yet continues, and it's interesting because I know people look at this and they go, oh, the Coyotes are just a disaster. The Coyotes had a decent season. They're developing good young players. The Mullet Arena was full every night, and I've seen that too. They can't even fill the arena in Tempe. They have. I checked all the. I've looked at any attendance report I can find. Every single one of them says 4,600 in attendance. Now, if the accusation is they're not all Coyotes fans, then Vancouver can't fill their building either, because there's always fans of the other team in the building for Canucks games, especially when the team's not very good. So that's just reality. And even Ottawa, you know, Ottawa, you go to an Ottawa-Toronto game in Ottawa, can be a lot of Leafs fans there. I guess that means Ottawa's not a good market. And that's not true, right? Anyways, that being said, we will see how these two stories merge at some point, right? It's just, to me, it's weird that it's an 18,500 capacity building. A lot of it sounds very, very similar to the Tempe Entertainment District, except this is the Gathering. So, the Gathering. Anyways, moving on to injury news from yesterday and today. Bergeron is apparently feeling better. This flu bug that's gone through Boston. And no, I didn't mention it in last night's recap because I had already talked about it in a news video, and I felt like it wasn't pertinent to the game itself, but that's just me. At any rate, he's feeling better. His status for Game 2 is unknown. I think he'll play. I'd be very surprised if Bergeron doesn't play in Game 2. We have seen in previous playoff runs, if Bergeron can skate, he's going to play. Cracked ribs, whatever. Separate his shoulder, whatever. He'll go out and he'll play. He will play through almost anything. And so for Bergeron, if he's feeling better, he'll be in the lineup. And of course, Boston up 1-0 does give them that allowance to maybe try to talk him into taking Game 2 off if they feel like he's not quite 100%. Because again, the word is that it was a stomach flu. Well, if you're losing a lot of fluids, stomach flu, you're going to lose a lot of fluids. It can leave you just really, really drained, and it's a lot easier to end up really sore with exercise, right? So you got to make sure he's hydrated and all that fun stuff. Coming out of Dallas's game last night, of course, all the talk was about Pavelski. His status is still unknown. I was looking to see if there was anybody saying, okay, so it is a concussion and it's indefinite, because to me it looked like a concussion last night, but it is the playoffs, so we get even less information now than we usually get, unless I've made a video about it. So now that I've made a video about it, I'm sure his status will come out. But all kidding aside, I hope Pavelski's okay. That was a scary incident to see him leaving the ice like that. For Pavelski, he is a player who does have a history with concussions. And again, you know, he needed help to go off the ice, and even then he was almost falling down. So it was a scary looking incident last night, and so I wish him all the best. Dallas will miss him if he misses a number of games past this. I can't see him playing Game 2 based on how he looked last night when he left the ice. I just can't see him playing Game 2. And then once you get into Game 3 or 4, I guess it depends on the severity of the injury. But I think for Dallas, they'll probably plan it that, okay, we'll just play it. The Joe's out for the rest of the series, and you make whatever line adjustments you can. Dallas does have depth to absorb that on some level, but there's leadership with Joe. There's that experience. and just what he brings to that line. And when you have him and Robertson and Hintz going as one of the best lines in hockey, and taking him out definitely will affect the team. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.